I'm doing this show today because a guy I really respect, Gary Black, keeps on saying that his estimate for Tesla for the year 2030 is only 10 million cars at the most. And he just can't imagine, he can't see it. He says, prove to him, show him, let him know how it is that Tesla can get to 20 million cars. How is it that they're going to double Toyota's top numbers, Volkswagen's top numbers of around 10 million? What is going to happen between now and 2030 that's going to make that happen? That's what we're going to be talking about today. This is Randy Kirk. This kind of a show takes a lot more preparation, takes a lot more effort, takes a lot more research to make sure that it's right. And there's going to be a lot of shows like that over the next week. Based on another challenge, I am going to be taking each section, each part of Tesla, part by part. So we've already been doing a lot on robots. You know, we've got the sexy cars, we've got the semi-truck, each of, all of these different sectors of Tesla that I think are going to be significant. And I'm going to start putting some meteor numbers on them. Now, these are going to be total speculation. I could be off by powers of 10 going into the future, but I'm going to just give you my best shot based on Tesla's statements, based on Elon's statements, based on my understanding of markets, based on my understanding of manufacturing, based on the experts that I've been having on my show, like Scott and John and others. And I'm going to just compile all of this information and I'm going to break it down by various divisions of the company. Right now, my belief is that the Optimus will be the largest division. And the first show I'll do, probably either tomorrow or the next day, the very first show that will be coming out will be about the kind of numbers that I think the Optimus is going to do. And it's going to be so much more than the combination of all of the other divisions, except for Robotaxi. We'll talk about Robotaxi maybe last. That might be my sixth show in this series, but not because it's going to be small, but because I think it's the most speculative at this time. I think the Robotaxi is not speculative at all, and so we'll be talking about that. But having said all that, the reason why I'm even telling you about all this is because I need more folks to sign up for Patreon. It's only $5 a month. I do put up shows early, like this show that I'm shooting right now. This show will go up early. People will have a day or two, I guess, in this case, about 20 hours ahead of the rest of the crowd. Some of the other ones are up a day or two or three ahead. I do put financial information. So to the extent that I create a spreadsheet, I put that information up on Patreon. And I have expenses. I have my time. I have the research time, and I have folks that help me with the editing and with a lot of the other activities that I do that make this show successful and make it possible to bring it to you. And I have the overhead with those folks that are helping me down in the Philippines, Sarah and Mike. So, and shout out to them. They do great work. I'm so happy and excited to have them on the team. So sign up for Patreon. Would really appreciate it. It'd be a great help. Okay. Now I'm going to go a little slow today because I want to get all of this right. I want this to be very, very, very clear to everyone as to how I get to my numbers, how Elon, I think, gets to his numbers. I'm sure he comes at it completely different, but I suspect that we won't be that far off. Let me say, first of all, anything could happen in the future. There are no guarantees, and things are likely to change unexpectedly. We can look at so many limiting factors that we don't know today that could keep Tesla from getting to 20 million cars per year produced in 2030. But so all of this is going to be based on the idea that we will not have World War III, we will not have another major pandemic that'll throw things completely out of whack, that we won't have a giant worldwide depression. So some of those things, take those off the table. Assuming kind of a normal ebbs and flows of markets, ebbs and flows of the general economy, et cetera, that between now and 2030, I don't see why it's going to be that hard to get to the numbers. But in order to sell 20 million cars, you have to be able to make 20 million cars. So let's start there. You need the space, you need the equipment, you need the people in order to be able to build those things. And maybe you don't need the people anymore because maybe you'll be fine with just a bunch of Optimi. 50% of the people said Optimi is correct. On my poll, they said Optimi is the plural of Optimus. Anyway, all right. So Tesla has just announced their new vehicle will take half the space and be able to be made at twice the rate, I think, because of their unboxed approach, and because it'll be smaller and it'll take less material and whatnot. And so that in Mexico, along with Berlin and Austin, already built out and now continuing to build out, we're getting fairly close to more than half of the necessary factories to get to 10 to 20 million. So we'll take that apart. Now, while it may be that they'll bring some of the methods from the new factory in Mexico back to Austin, maybe for the second phase, but maybe even going back to the first phase, they might bring some of those methods back and be able to use a smaller footprint. They might do the same thing in Berlin, and maybe eventually even in Fremont. They might decide to unbox things in Fremont as well, but we'll not necessarily assume all of that. Shanghai, of course, I left out Shanghai. That would be another obvious place where it looks like they're going to expand in terms of square footage, but they might also, of course, go back and do unboxed approaches in Shanghai in the existing space. Don't know. Interesting to see what happens in that regard. All right. So my best guess, though, right now is Austin will make about 2 million Model Ys. And then I'm saying that Austin will make at least 1 million Cybertrucks. Probably more, but for now, let's say 1 million. And based on that, based on everything I've just said, I think they'll get at least another million Gen 3 cars in Austin, maybe more. But they got lots of space. They got lots of factory. With one thing and another, let's just say 1 million, okay, for now, Gen 3 cars. That would give you 4 million from Austin. Now let's go to Berlin, and let's say that the same thing without the Cybertruck. So that would be 3 million instead of 4 million. So that would give a total of 7 million. And with regard to Cybertruck, I think that they will make trucks in Berlin, but I don't know what yet. We have no evidence for sure that that's going to happen. So just for Berlin, it will be 2 million Model Ys and 1 million of the new Generation 3 car, whatever that's going to be. Now, by the way, we're not talking about robo-taxis yet at all. For this particular video, I'm going to talk about it like every one of these is drivable and is not a robo-taxi, that they haven't even figured out how to take away the steering wheel and the pedal yet by 2030. So that's the understanding. I don't think that's true. I think that will change, but for now, we're just going to look at it without it. Mexico is said to be double the size of Austin, and they'll start out with a unboxed approach. So Mexico is said to be double the size of Austin, and they'll start with the unboxed approach. So I'm just going to figure that they're going to be good for at least 6 million by the end of the decade. I think that's fair. If you're going to be looking at 4 million in Austin, 6 million in Mexico is probably low, but that'll be a good place to start. So we'll take that 6, we'll put it together with 7, and we're already to 13 million with just existing factories. So now then there's going to be the other vehicles. So we've got the Semi. The Semi is going to be, at least for now, made up in Reno. And I'm saying that they're going to go to 1 million units. Can they do 1 million units in Reno? I don't know, but I believe eventually they'll do 1 million units wherever those factories might be. And then that's semis and large trucks. So you've got that combination there, which would add. And of course, every one of those trucks is really, in terms of dollar volume, is going to be the equivalent of about 5 or 6 of the existing Sexy line and the new vehicle, actually more than that of the new vehicle. So that's at 13 million. Add another 700,000 for Fremont, 1.3 million for Shanghai. Now we're at 15 million from existing facilities. And I'm personally guessing that Indonesia is next, and maybe that's only 1 or 2 more million. I don't know. It could be more. An extension at Shanghai. It doesn't take that hard. It's not that hard to get to the 20 million in terms of production. All right. So how do we go? Now we have to go from the best-selling car in the world, the Model Y, about 4 million units, possibly when it's all said and done. Right now, it's running in the 1.3, 1.4, somewhere in that range, and maybe by the end of year 2 million. Model 3 is probably going to be stuck around 1 million, maybe less. Now we're talking about how we're going to sell all these. Okay. So assuming that there's no change in the general market with regard to SUVs being loved, then probably going to have 4 million Model Y SUVs selling by 2030. Now, Gary, you might disagree with me there. You might say, well, no, as these $25,000 cars become more and more popular, people won't want the Model Ys that much. But the reality is you can start doing variations of the Model Y. You can do less and less expensive versions of the Model Y. There's a whole bunch of ways. And I'm thinking that SUV style is still going to be super popular. And if it's not, then Tesla will shift. We go back to boxy looking station wagons. Okay, we make that shift. That's not a difficult thing to do if that's the case. So that style, kind of in that price point, probably looking at 4 million a year, about 1 million Model 3s. And again, that could be larger as the Model 3 price comes down. And then some other styles again in that category. So now you need 13 million more that they need to sell. Now, most people that are looking at the new Generation 3 platform are saying that will be 10 million. Where are they getting that number? Kind of like this, kind of pulling it out of thin air. But let's think about it. If you can sell right now, you got 1 million, roughly, pickup trucks, per each company. You've got 1 million Toyota, the top of the line Toyota, the top of the line of each of these cars is around 1 million. So we're saying that the Model 3 is going to be that car, and then the Model Y is going to be substantially more than that. Well, now this new version is not just going to be one car. At the very least, again, forgetting robotaxis, at the very least, it's going to probably be some kind of a small van, some kind of a small hatchback, some kind of a small sedan. There's going to be multiple, and the one that they build in Europe will look different than the one that they build in Shanghai, will look different than the one maybe even in Indonesia, the one in Mexico that's going into the South American markets. Each of these cars could be very different. And then there could be multiples of those, smaller vans, bigger vans, work vans, small truck, all kinds of possibilities off of that same platform. So getting to 10 million doesn't seem to be that much of a stretch. So then after you've got, say, 10 million of those and 4 million between Y and 3, now you still have the luxury cars, the S and the X. You might have other luxury cars that come along in the meantime. And then you've got the Cybertruck and other large trucks at around 1 million. So I might be losing my ability to add in all of that, but let's see. So why, if that's about, we're getting very, very close to the 20 million, 10 and 4, 14, 15, 16. So let's assume that there will be work trucks, additional work trucks. Elon mentioned other commercial trucks. Okay, so these would be the vans and other work trucks that would not be as large, let's say, as a Cybertruck, or that would be side panels or flatbeds. So there's a whole bunch of things like that. There's the possibility of specific trucks for specific industries. So there's a bunch of ways that you can get to the 20 million with other niches that Tesla could move into as we get closer to 2030. And this wouldn't be a case of not being able to make money at these. The niche products always generate a higher return on investment or a higher margin. Okay, so now we have, so one of the issues, one of the questions I'm sure Gary would ask is, well, yeah, but there'll be all of these other car companies making all kinds of additional cars. And I will say, yes, Gary, there will be. Absolutely. I've done a whole series of videos on that. And I think that BYD will be making about 6 million cars, maybe more. I think that Kia, high-end Kia, will be making 4, 5, 6, maybe more million cars. These are two car companies that are focused on delivering battery electric vehicles, at a high clip, opening up the necessary factories to do so. But when you get past those two and maybe Geely, it's hard to find anybody else that's really serious about big numbers. So you have Ford talking about 2 million by the end of 26 or 27. You have General Motors talking about maybe 1 to 2 million by that same period. You've got nobody else. So you can go down the list. Yeah, you've got other people. Some of the German car companies talking about, building 3, 4, 5 million by that 26, 27 time period. But you don't have anybody talking about making 10 million by 2030. And those factories need to start being put in place fairly soon in order for them to be in a position to build those kind of numbers. And you need about 65 million from other players. So Tesla, if they make 20, you need about 65 million at the end of the century. At the end of the decade, you're going to need about 65 million from these other players in order to get to the 85 million that will probably be the demand at that time. Now, that demand is assuming no robotaxis. That demand might come down. It might be less than 85 million if there are robotaxis, but it might go up because as these very inexpensive and very cheap to maintain and to energize cars come onto the market, a lot of folks in second and third world nations may be able to afford what they couldn't afford before. So you might see a big uptick in the total number of cars that people want across the globe. But let's just stick with my 65 million number. It is really difficult to get to a place where 65 million cars are being made by the other 20, 25 really serious companies out there. It may happen. A bunch of these companies, these car companies in China, a bunch of these startups, some of them might be successful. They might be able to spin off enough profit and enough free cash flow to be able to build the necessary facilities, enough CapEx to be able to build the necessary facilities to build 1 million or 2 million cars. A lot of things are possible between now and then, but it's really a stretch. Now, here's where the marketing comes in. And Gary, this is where my expertise comes in. And that is Tesla has a major lead in every aspect of the car. They have a major lead in the cost. They have a major lead in the availability of raw materials, knowing where to get the raw materials. They have a major lead in terms of their verticality. They have a major lead in regards to their brand identification as an electric car maker. They have a major lead in terms of having the people on the ground to do the tasks that are necessary in order to get the job done. The list goes on and on and on and on. So when we're going into this market, let's say that starts in 26, 25. By 2025, by 2025, we are going to be in a situation where people are going to say, I can buy a $25,000 vehicle that requires no gas and requires no repairs to speak of ever. That's going to last me 100,000 miles without any trouble. And that basically beats the heck out of any ICE car, any internal combustion engine car, beats any other internal combustion car on the road in terms of safety, in terms of quickness, in terms of reliability, in terms of how far they can go on a tank, in this case, a tank of electricity. So, and there'll be plenty of charging stations everywhere to manage, to people to be able to get their charge taken care of. And they'll be faster than they are today, et cetera, et cetera. So it's going to be, in 2025, there's going to be this shift in the attitude, the mentality of the average consumer. I don't want an ICE car anymore. Why would I want an ICE car? That's what's going to happen. Now, ICE cars will continue to sell for 10 years. And there will be people that will be continuing to make ICE cars in 27 and 28, but that's it. It'll be over. There'll be nobody making ICE cars after that because there'll be no demand. So what will happen is you'll have all these folks that need a new car, and the only thing that they can get is either a used ICE car, a used BEV car, or they can get a new BEV cars, but there won't be enough a new BEV. There won't be enough of any of those to satisfy the entire demand. So Tesla being in the lead in terms of their quality, in terms of their reliability, in terms of the value for dollar, they will have still the greatest demand. It's not like they're going to lose that, Gary. I just got to tell you, they're not going to lose that. They're still going to be the leader. It's what's going to happen between now and then that they're not going to be the leader. So as they are the leader, they will get all of their demand met. And then people will turn to the folks that are not quite as good. They'll turn to maybe a Ford or the BYDs and the Hyundai Kias and whatnot that have making large quantities. They're not quite as good as Tesla, but I've always liked Kias, so I'll buy that Kia. I've always loved Ford. That's been my family car, and that's good enough. It's good enough to do the job. It's a good deal. It's way better than a nice car. That's what I'll buy. And so these companies will all have market. They'll all have plenty of market if they have a decent BEV vehicle. Some won't be decent. They'll be ugly, or they'll have a reputation for not working. It's just like a normal market. And some of them will fail. Some of the models will fail. Some of the car companies will fail. Some of them will have lousy management. Some of them will run out of money. All of the things that happen to normal companies all the time will happen as this industry grows. But ultimately, Tesla will be by far the leader, and they will be the leader in terms of production. They'll have the production capacity to fill the marketplace as much as possible. And they will have the best cars, the best quality cars for the best money, so the best value, or as Elon says, the most compelling car for a compelling price. They will be in the lead on that. So I don't think they'll have trouble selling their 20 million cars. In addition to everything that I've just said, we also know that they'll be leading in terms of their cost of manufacturing advantage. This gives them all kinds of levers that they can pull, just like they proved in January. They can lower the price. They can lower the interest rates on loans or the interest variable aspect of leases. They can begin to advertise at any point along the way that they feel that it's necessary. They can start to do more PR and promotion like you'd like them to, Gary. They can do product placement on television or at the movie theater, assuming there's still television and movie theaters by then. We're all wearing the goggles or the headsets. Anyway, there's so many levers that they can pull that they haven't needed yet. And by golly, I think they won't need them in 2030 either, because they'll be so far ahead of everybody else in all these categories. So will something pop up along the way? Sure. There could be a completely disruptive, a completely new way of doing cars. There could be a completely new way of doing trucks. There could be something so disruptive that it disrupts Tesla. That's possible. There could be wars. There could be famine. There could be all kinds of pestilence. Who knows? All those kind of things could happen. The most likely thing that's going to happen is that sometime in 2025, Tesla will they'll have a conversation with the leadership in Arizona, in Florida, or Nevada. Those are my three most likely choices. And they'll have a conversation with those three states, and one or all three of those states will say, yes, you can start testing robotaxis in our state. And they will start putting out robotaxis in some cities or in some counties or in some geographic areas, and they'll start testing because there's more to test than just the car. The car has to get from A to Z, from point to point without any interruptions and without any kind of problems. But you also have to have a robotaxi network with all the software that entails to get it to go pick up somebody at their home, and then to be able to, after they drop somebody off, know where they need to go to get the next person and how to charge people, and all that kind of stuff is yet to come. I'm sure it's all being worked on, but it will be needed to be tested on a regional basis in the beginning. But as we go into the second half of this decade, and as robotaxis are rolled out, then there's going to be a shift in what kind of production Tesla is going to need. And if all cars that Tesla makes are able to be driven from the back seat or while you're reading a newspaper, then that is also going to change their production as well, and only increase the likelihood that they'll sell every car that they can possibly make up to that 20 million. I'm saying they'll do it even if cars are just the same as they are now. I've just proven that, I believe, but I'd love to have somebody, please comment. Please, Gary, challenge me. Let's go on this YouTube channel and let's talk about my numbers and where I'm off. Hit me with your best stuff, or just do it on Twitter. That's fine. Lay out the top 10 reasons why Randy's wrong. Lay that right out on Twitter. let me know what it is. But if we switch to not just robotaxis, but to FSD on all vehicles being made by Tesla, that will change all the dynamics in Tesla's favor. No other car company in the world is prepared to make that switch. Nobody is going to be close to prepared in 2026, 2027, 2028 to make that switch, even if they have managed to come up with a solution to be able to make cars that can be driven while you're playing a video game on the set. It's not going to happen. Now, by 2030, could there be some companies like a BYD or like a Mercedes or others that begin to have a complete full self-driving automobile that is reasonably priced and looks good and has all the benefits and stuff that Tesla has at that point? Somebody could maybe be getting close, maybe one, maybe two companies, but that's not going to put a dent in Tesla's demand. I hope this makes sense to everyone, but I do want to hear your comments. If I've blown it somewhere, where have I made a mistake here? I love your comments. The comments not only help to see where I might be making a mistake, but the comments also help. You can't believe how many times your comments have driven the story forward. It's like, oh, what about Randy? Hey, have you thought about this, Randy? And they drive the narrative forward. So love to hear from Gary. Love to hear from everybody. What are your comments? Please join Patreon so that I can I can afford to do this. I would like to get a reasonable return on my investment of my time and my expenses doing this. So if you would join Patreon, in my category, it's $5 a month. Some of you, maybe you'll put in 10. There's a category where you can put in 50. Help to support the channel. I would appreciate it. In the meantime, if you liked it, like, and then hit the notify button and subscribe and notify, because you're going to want to see these other robot videos that are coming up this weekend. All right, that's it. And it's been great talking to you.
Click the link below to get your paperback, Kindle, or audiobook now.